Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff. In today's video, we are going to be talking about how to successfully engrave a 40-ounce tumbler. So basically any tumbler that has a larger diameter at the top and a smaller diameter at the bottom. Now you might think this is the same as engraving any other type of tumbler, but there are some pitfalls that you really need to look out for when you're engraving a tumbler shaped like this, and we're going to talk about those today in this video. For this video, I'm going to be using my X-Tool S1. It is a diode laser and it's 40 watts, and I'm going to be using the Rotary tool. The X-Tool machines, I think all of them play nicely with this Rotary tool, and I really like it. I've done another video on how to use it, and I'm not going to go into all of the specifics of using the Rotary tool in this video, but I will link to that other video. But when you're setting this up, you want to set it up with these chucks. So there is a setup that has two big rollers. You want to take the rollers off and you want to set it up with these chucks. This is going to allow it to grip the inside of this cup so that you can engrave all the way around the outside. In today's video, I wanted to highlight these really cool 40-ounce tumblers that I got from MakerFlow. They may look a little bit different than other 40-ounce tumblers that you have seen. I have one of those over here, and you'll see that this one has a handle. Most 40-ounce tumblers do. And to take this handle off so that you can engrave all the way around your tumbler here, you're going to need to unscrew it, engrave the whole thing, and then add the handle back on. This can be really tricky. Getting the screws out is not so bad, but putting the handle back on can be kind of fussy depending on the brand you're working with. So MakerFlow designed this handle-free 40-ounce tumbler. So to start, it has a screw-on lid instead of one that pushes in, which helps reduce leaks. And then if you do want a handle, you can buy them separately. So this is actually one of the teal handles that I've got here. Kind of goes with this teal one over here, but they are all interchangeable. And basically you just screw it on the top. And that means that you are not having to fuss with the little screws that come with most 40-ounce tumblers. And then the top here just screws on. This gives you a little extra room for some beverage, for some ice. This handle is reversible, so you can actually kind of screw it on the other way, and so the top goes on the other way so that it can be right-handed or left-handed. And like I said, they are interchangeable. So I'm not sure this is my favorite color combo, the purple and the teal. Maybe that's your thing. But one of the things that I thought for this, these would be perfect for sports teams. And they come in a rainbow of colors basically. So if I wanted to make myself sort of something that I might take to my beloved 49er game, I could use a red tumbler and the yellow handle. This would also work for school sports, those sorts of things. I just have a lot of ideas on how these could be sort of school spirit, you know, sports teams, that sort of thing. So this is just a little bit different and I really like it and I wanted to highlight it here. It is also so much easier to engrave because we are not dealing with that handle. So I mentioned that there are a few pitfalls when it comes to engraving something that has a different diameter at the top and the bottom. So this could be a 40-ounce tumbler, a similar 30-ounce tumbler, or even a tapered tumbler. And the first one that we're going to talk about is basically that the diameter up here is different than down here, which means that your image is going to be distorted. Basically, you have a flat image and you're wrapping it around two different sized diameters, which means that you have to fit the same amount of image up top as you do down here, which means that one of those is going to be distorted and it's going to be the small piece. If you have a tapered tumbler, the top might look correct, but then as you go down, it might get more distorted. Basically, the laser has to squish the same amount of design on this smaller part. So if you go to buy a design on Etsy, Creative Fabrica, wherever you're getting your engraving design, most of them will not show you that the bottom part is going to end up distorted. It's going to end up looking squashed. So just keep that in mind when you're either designing your own file or when you're buying files. Some files, it just doesn't matter, you can't tell, but other files, it's really obvious. So for example, if I did a design that was mostly circles, they would look like circles up here, and on the bottom they would look like sort of taller ovals. And that is because you kind of have to squish that circle into a smaller amount of horizontal space. It's just something to keep in mind, but it's not something that I see people talk about a lot, and it's definitely not something I see people design for a lot. To get the two different parts to actually match, you're going to need to design the file that way, or you're going to need to basically engrave it in two parts. You're going to need to engrave the top part, and then separately you're going to need to engrave the bottom part. So that's the first pitfall, and it really just has to do with the design. The second pitfall has to do with the actual functioning of the laser. And this basically has to do with focal length. So how close your laser is to what it is engraving and how concentrated the laser beam is in that point. It's scientific. I'm not going to go into all the science of it. So if you're thinking about this being in the laser, so basically it's inside of the rotary tool, it sits like this, right? And your laser is going to move back and forth over the top. Well, this part of your design is going to be much closer to the laser than this part of your design. And the laser's power and speed are going to be set for one of these two levels. And this means that you can have some problems. So let me grab an example really quick. I hope you can see this in the overhead, but up top here, we still have a green cast on all of the images here. That is because it didn't actually engrave fully through the powder coating. Down here at the bottom, everything looks good. It's actually silver like it should be. It got all the way through the powder coating and down to the stainless steel. And that's because the focal length was set for the bottom of this, but not the top. I was doing a bunch of different testing to see what I could make work, and clearly this didn't work very well. So how do we get around this problem? There are a couple things you can do. The first is to actually design or buy a design that comes in two pieces. So you're gonna have a wrap that goes on the top, and you're gonna have a separate wrap that goes on the bottom, and you're basically gonna ignore this sort of sloped piece in the middle. Honestly, I think that is the best way. The problem is there's not a lot of those designs out there. So you would have to create it yourself or specifically look for designs that are separated into two pieces. And then the other thing we can do is basically make that focal length a little bit more even. And we do this by basically raising up one end of our rotary tool. So I'm gonna grab this one here again because it's easy to see the pink. Now, if you have it like this, like we were talking about, this is going to be much closer to the laser than this down here. So how do we fix this? Well, we can tilt the bottom end up just a little bit. So when we tilt the bottom end up, and I'm gonna do it probably a little bit more than it needs to be, we actually have more of this tumbler top equidistant from the laser than we do if it's like straight on its side. And because we have more of it that is sort of equal across, that means we are going to get a much more even engrave. This is one of those cases where you may have to test a lot, and that is unfortunate. I wouldn't necessarily try testing it with a full wrap, but buy yourself a test tumbler. Just buy an extra one, and you can basically engrave strips down the side. And that will allow you to figure out how much you need to raise that bottom edge to get the clearest, most defined engraving possible. So let's say I wanted to engrave this blue 40-oz tumbler. So basically I want these chuck pieces to go on the inside of my project here. And I'm going to kind of hold it as straight as possible here. And I'm going to basically open the chuck so that it holds on to this tightly here. There we go. I like to make it pretty darn tight because I don't want it to shift, just like that. So now this is not going anywhere. Now you can see as I turn it in the overhead, it's not quite straight. So you may need to undo it a little bit and sort of play around with it. It may take you a while. It feels backwards. I feel like it's lefty-loosey, righty, or lefty-tighty, righty-loosey, but that's because it's basically making it bigger and smaller here with the little piece here. Now we're going to want to lift the end of this up so that we can create that sort of equidistant space here. I have actually decided that the best way to do this is using the extra chuck pieces that come with this. This is for my laser with my tumblers. It might be different with yours. Maybe you don't need to lift it up as high. Maybe, you know, you have something else that you can use. I have found that these worked pretty perfectly for doing this. So I'm going to lift this up here. I'm just going to put these two little chucks underneath here. I'm going to do this, you know, inside my laser. And now I'm not sure if you can tell there, but now that the end of this is up, we have basically this and this here at the same height. And because of that, this will be kind of our high area. This will be our low area, but overall it's a much more even distance from the laser than we had when we just had it on its side. Now, like I said, you are probably going to have to test. This worked really well with my laser, my S1, these particular tumblers, and we all know that color can also affect a diode laser in particular. So, you know, a diode laser doesn't love blue as much as it loves other colors. So, you know, this might not turn out as well as maybe this pink one that I did, even using the same settings. So what I did was in Xtool Creative Space, I went in and found a similarly colored tumbler. So I found a pink tumbler and I let it choose those settings for me. But then I bumped up the power just a little bit because I found that if I didn't, I really didn't get a clean engrave here in this divot here. So you may need to play with those settings a little bit. You may need to bump up that power, slow down the speed, speed up the speed, all of these things. These are not projects that are going to come out right the first time, unfortunately. You might have to waste a tumbler or two. I hate waste, trust me, I understand. I do not like that I have, this green tumbler that I don't love over here, but it's just the process of learning. You can always use those yourself. You can give them to friends and family. Hey, here's a tumbler. It's not perfect, but it's one of the ones I was testing on and I don't want to waste it. Have a free tumbler. Basically, you need to get it into your mindset that you're going to have to do some testing. Things may not turn out perfectly, but with this little trick of shimming underneath the Rotary tool, I think you can get a lot better results than you could get without doing it. Once you have everything shimmed and ready to go, you can go ahead and engrave your tumbler. So this is the tumbler that I made in that time lapse. I'm really happy with how it turned out. This was probably the 6th tumbler that I made. So I had some that turned out really horribly that I was testing like well before Christmas. So it's been several months, which I actually passed along because I was tired of having these really bad projects in my office. So I just have these other few that I've tested with, but overall I found that this worked really well. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Is it perfect? No. Is it pretty close to perfect? Yes. Is it perfect for me? Absolutely. It is just a little bit dark, and I don't think you're going to be able to see this in the overhead. It's just a little bit dark on this sloped piece here. No matter how much I scrub it, I couldn't get that. Maybe it engraved too deep in that particular part. Maybe it didn't engrave enough. But overall, I'm really happy with it. But if you do want something that is actually perfect, I highly recommend engraving this in 2 pieces. So you're going to have this top piece, and then you're going to have this bottom piece, and that solves both of the problems we talked about in this video. First, you aren't going to have that sort of smushed warping down at the bottom because you're going to set the diameter of this piece in X12 Creative Space. So it knows how much tumbler it has to work with. So you're going to not have that warping issue. The second problem it solves is you don't need to do all the shimming and the lifting up. You can just engrave the 2 pieces separately using separate focal lengths. If you engrave it just straight like this, you'll measure this top part and it will engrave this top part perfectly. Then you'll measure this piece and it will engrave the bottom part perfectly. I really think that is the best solution for engraving these tumblers that have 2 different diameters. Now, if I want to turn this cute pink tumbler into something that is very hey, let's make stuff, I can go ahead and grab that teal handle here and I can screw it on. I also have a matching pink handle if I wanted to do all pink, but you know that I love teal and pink around here, so I can go ahead and make myself the perfect tumbler that matches my personality. I hope you found the tips and tricks in this video for engraving a 40-ounce tumbler helpful. If you have any issues or you need help, please leave a comment and I will see if I can help you out. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate a like. Follow my channel for more laser content. I'll see you next time.